All right, and okay, we're on. So hi and welcome to Psychic Witch Talk. And Christine is who is a reader at the Mystic Dream in Walnut Creek, California. And sad day for me, she's stepping down as my co-host. So she can go on to make cool things and do cool things and have an interesting life. Damn it. So thank you so much. This has been a great project. You're like the best person in the world I could ever have done this project with. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same way about you. Oh,
yeah. And you don't even know where any of the bodies are buried, so it worked out great. So Christine works at the Mystic Dream in Walnut Creek, California. You can book her. Are you working Mondays and Wednesdays still?
Yes.
And then there's 2 groups that you're running as well, correct?
Yes, I'm doing the Angel Gathering on the first Sunday of every month at the Mystic Dream at 5:30. 5 o'clock on his first Sunday. And then on the first Friday of every month, I'm co-hosting with Joe Links at the Mystic Dream to do a new group, which is the Silver Cauldron, which is a bunch of fun. We share a lot of information with each other, and the topic floats. So whatever anybody brings in, you never know what they're going to be asking.
And the Silver Cauldron is paganism and witchcraft focused?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and I'm excited about that. Joe is a great person to work with too, so that's super exciting for me to hear. So yay!
Yay!
I'm Diana Rajchel. I run the Emperor Norton Pagan Social in San Francisco. We meet at the Promenade Coffee Shop on the first Monday of the month in the evening. You'll have to find the rest at meetup.com. And we do have a second Wednesday morning discussion group as well. I also run Diana Rajchel Psychic Life Coaching out of Purusha Yoga on Balboa. And I do a combination of readings, life coaching, and spiritualist work like egg cleansings, limpia, occasionally chasing jinn out of your house, depends on the day and what you need. So this is us, and today our topic is the best questions to ask your psychic reader.
Yay!
So, yeah. So these are the ones that will actually go, ooh, they were prepared.
I know. last show for a little while anyway, and we're probably the most prepared, which is rather funny.
No irony there. No, none at all.
So the one that comes across a lot, or has recently anyway, are people that are leaving the Bay Area or wanting to stay in the Bay Area, but they want to move, but they haven't decided what city or county that they want. They can visualize the home, they can visualize what they would like and the pricing, but they don't know what would be the best move for them. And so I thought that was an excellent question to be coming in and asking a psychic, because a lot of people go, well, I want to live close to the city, and they just start looking everywhere all around the city, where if you ask a psychic a question like that, they can help you narrow it down and cut out all kinds of garbage so that you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. For context for people watching, as of 2018, San Francisco Bay Area has become, it swings between the first and second most expensive place to live in the United States. So the average price for a 1-bedroom apartment in an okayish neighborhood in San Francisco itself is around $3,500, and that does not come with parking. And usually your average rent deposit is going to be in excess of $10,000 to $15,000.
Oh my goodness.
So when someone moves, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's extremely expensive, and it's not just renting, but buying. You know, if you're going to buy for those people that are, you know, climbing up the ladder or going down the ladder, I want to go from a big house to a condo and that kind of thing. So it really, you need to really look into how much traffic there is, and all that kind of, those questions that go with it. You may be wonderful in San Jose or San Mateo, except that the traffic may not suit you, you know? So,
or the complete lack of mass transportation, or the boredom, or all kinds of things. Yeah. Also, I will say it is Silicon Valley. There is an abundance of single millionaires around here. Unfortunately, their mother did not raise them well.
oh.
So might want to go on a more independent plan than that.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't think, I've only met a handful, so I really can't judge on that one. I haven't met enough of them to know. You have. Okay.
I have. Marie says they're not allowed to have a catapult in the backyard anymore.
Okay. So one of the other questions that I did get in regards to, you know, where should I live was, would they find something, let's say, with a view in this, you know, county or whatever? Could they afford to buy something that has a nice view, or they wanted to be surrounded by trees, whatever their personal liking is. And so for those more detailed questions, it helps them really narrow it down, because they may find something, we'll say, in San Francisco, but you know, all you're going to see is building, you know, all around you. And that's not what they're looking for. So the more detailed you can get with your questions, the easier it is, because then you just draw cards on that and you can lead yourself right down to pinpointing it to almost a neighborhood if you wanted to.
Yeah. I know sometimes you can just see the pendulum in the map, but again, because of variable futures, and because especially with this, it's not just San Francisco, but the cities around here tend to be very active 24/7, which means that spiritual energy will shift 24/7 too. So if you were not talking to a psychic right then and happened to be calling about an apartment right there, right then, you might have better luck than you would in an hour, especially as rapidly as the real estate market moves, especially around here. But yeah, the better the questions you have, the better the vision you have. And if you have, I encourage people to develop a relationship with the land spirit where they want to live. Because if the land spirit wants you there, if the city spirit wants you there, it will find a place. And that's a big part of it. And part of that is, a lot of people don't think of it. They just think, I want a place to live, and these are the things I want to enjoy from the environment. But if you pose it to the area, to the spiritual plane of where you're living, and saying, this is what I'm going to bring to you, then, especially if you have something that area wants that's compatible with what that area needs, it's going to move a little bit faster than it might ordinarily.
So
I
like that.
Yeah. I mean, I really did resort to witchcraft to get both the places I've lived in San Francisco. And the first, like, we were given 30 days to find a place, which is not enough time at the time that my wife and I moved here. We managed to get a place within, we still managed to do it just at the end of 30 days, because I finally laid it down saying, okay, here's what I can do for you. And so making sure it was a reciprocal relationship.
I know, you ended up with a lovely place.
Yeah, both times. I lucked out. Believe me, I've had to work for it. And I still do, but it worked out really well. So, and yeah, and I will say, especially since one of the services I do is like the house finding candles and this kind of thing. But again, the clearer you are about what you want, and the clearer you are about what you are bringing to that space, the better you will do. And just remember, with San Francisco, there's water on three sides. We have nowhere to build. San Jose has some farmland, and you can get fresh air once in a while. So just keep that in mind.
I would think in San Francisco you get fresh air all the time.
Not really. Well, with the fires last fall, that was definitely a problem. And it really does depend on the mood of the ocean and what someone's just done to the ocean. So most of the time it's fine. And I live closer to the ocean, so usually I get the better air. But once you start getting into the city, especially towards the east side before the Bay Bridge, there's just less plants to filter the air and the gasoline from the cars, and it just gets a little bit harder to be around. So it really does depend on where you are. And since the most affordable places are in the Tenderloin, which is pretty much one cement block and, hey, a treat, you don't get as much filtering as you might further out in the avenues.
Good to know. It's not something that I think about because I'm not planning on moving to San Francisco, but it is good to know because I always think when I go to San Francisco, I always go near the water, somewhere near the water, and there's always a fresh breeze coming off the water. So I always think of the whole city being that way, and it's not.
No, once you move towards the center, you would not even know that you were surrounded by water. It's astonishingly urban in the center. And then apparently it's like what the meaning of inner city was coined for, but it's also still rapidly changing, and I think greening is going to be a big part of that too. So, I mean, watching this video 5 years from now, it may be a completely different place.
Oh yeah, let's hope so.
Or we may be an island city by then. You really can't tell what's going to happen.
Absolutely. So on the next thing would be everybody that does readings, I'm going to say at one point or another, is going to get asked a question about their love life. So what's the best ones?
Best questions for love life, and I have a long list of the worst ones. But I think the best ones I've gotten are, I think there's like, especially, and I get this from women that, like the average woman that I get this from, I've gotten this more than once, is from women around 33 to 35, where they've chosen to be single, they're deciding they want to get serious, and they say, can you help me take stock of what kind of partner would work with me? And so, which is really, I mean, yes, the reading is good, but it's really a discussion of personal values and figuring out, because for long-term relationships, it's about how you want to be when you're being completely dorky and what underlying values you share. And for me, that's usually, that's the secret to long-term compatibility.
Okay.
And so, you know, the good questions are, and usually they will have like different people in mind, like they may be seeing one or two people and want to see a comparison and see if there's any potential for longevity. But most of the time it's really the love life question. The first question is always one of self-identification, is who am I before I get paired off with someone, so I can pair off with someone where we can be ourselves and still be something better. So, which there, I don't know. I don't know if I've had any men ask me anything that clear. Usually they're asking about someone specific, or it's very common for me to get men that come from cultures where prearranged marriage is the norm. And then they either want an examination of candidates from something outside of Vedic astrology, or they want advice on how to talk their mother out of making them go through the prearranged route.
Yeah, I've had, I would say the most common question, not necessarily the best question, but the most common question is, am I going to be single for the rest of my life?
Oh no. You know, and that one can be so variable. I was thinking about this the other day, because I know every so often I'll get someone who's been told, you're going to have 3 children and meet this man this year, and et cetera, et cetera. And then when it doesn't happen, they're almost heartbroken.
Yes.
And it's this thing is that fate and destiny do have their place, but it's not nearly as big or concrete a place as we would like them to be. I mean, if our futures were fixed, that would be reassuring. I'd be less stressed, especially with some of the things I've had thrown at my life. But they're not. And so I really feel like a reader who's telling you that kind of stuff is doing you a huge disservice, because if you're getting hung on that, you're missing other opportunities to learn or connect, even subconsciously.
Yes.
And yeah, and I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anyone where it's been a, yes, you will be single forever. I will either get a, maybe there's some things you might want to work on, or it's usually it's just, this is not the time. There are other things you need to be doing first.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten that one. I almost tell in overall that, do you want to have a relationship, or are you just, doing a fairy tale dream kind of thing? Do you want to really have a relationship, or are you looking at the Disney version of a relationship and gosh, when will I ever have something like that?
I mean, yes, your prince may come, but can he balance a checkbook?
Exactly. Exactly. Can he carry on a decent conversation?
How do you get along with his mother?
Yes. So there's so many other factors.
Yeah, well, and the question I always have is, so why is it bad to be single? Why are you treating marriage as a goal? Mm-hmm. Marriage is a life circumstance, not a goal. Because, I mean, admittedly, and I've written, for context for new viewers, I've written a book about divorce. I've spent a lot of time researching marriage. And marriage was originally basically a business arrangement plus sex for children to run the business. And it didn't become a romantic concept until the 19th century. And then it took some very strategic Victorian brainwashing, including little pamphlets for women written by men telling them how they weren't good enough forever.
Oh my goodness.
Pretty much the psychological underpinning of all things Disney. And so when people are talking about this, something must be wrong with me, I'm not married yet, I'm like, one, you're not a fruit fly. If you don't pair off, you've got more than 3 hours to live, you're fine. But also, if you're trying it into, this is my life plan, well, that's one of the things in your life you really, I mean, maybe you want to set aside money for it for when it happens, but planning for it to happen will frequently block it from happening, or even worse, you end up marrying someone who's really not compatible with you.
Right. I do get a lot of, 30s, mid to late 30s that I've got to find somebody. I mean, this is a goal because my time is running out. My clock is running out.
We have science for that now. First of all, yes, we do have science for that. What I was going to say, it is better to be single than to be married to someone you're not compatible with, no matter what. As for the biological clock thing, first of all, the average age of menopause has been going up steadily. It is to the point where the most unexpected pregnancies in the United States happen to women between 35 and 45, because too many lazy butt doctors are going, oh, you're 35, you must be starting menopause, instead of actually running the tests to check. There's a whole lot of surprise babies from older women now. Second is for those that can afford it, there are other options. And third, there are still plenty of kids that need parents in this world. If it is really about wanting to have a kid to nurture it and not just about some DNA eternity thing, which, I understand that's very important, that lineage and family line is very important to some people. For me, I'd rather just see people get taken care of. So that's just my personal bias.
Yeah. And I feel too that if somebody really wants to be in a relationship, then just write down the items for you, because it's individual to each person, which you would consider deal breakers. And that's not, 40 questions. That's like 4 or 5 main deal breakers. And get out and have some fun. And as connect with people that don't have those 4 or 5 things going on, and see if you click with somebody and if they have the same goals and stuff in mind. It's really not as hard as we've created it to be, because with the computers and stuff, personal contact has become very difficult for people. They hide at home and they do these very strange pictures of themselves and present like, I'm a model, and it's like, that can't be the same person's picture. You look at it and you look at them and you're like, how did they do that? Without even Photoshop, they got the angle right and the light right and everything else.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've done internet dating. It's not always terrifying. Like, that's how I met my wife, and that worked out okay. But this was way before we had the the camera technology to basically lie to each other. But no, and I think you're right though, is people have become almost asocialized. I mean, I was reading somewhere like, okay, so this may get a little too adult for some. So if you don't want your kids having to do the where do babies come from talk, cover their ears now. But the way apparently the average age for loss of virginity has been rising steadily. So it's been going from 16 to like 18 to it's getting closer to 25 now. And part of it is that, you know, people, they're putting most of their social lives online instead of in face-to-face interaction, you know, which makes me wonder if the chickenpox virus ever gets loose late in life, some people are screwed. They need to get around to get some germs on each other. Yeah. But the other problem that's slowing down like basic contact, sexual contact, developing those relationships and lessons. And I like to say, well, I can thank Bush era sex education politics because it disappeared. But part of it is that people are getting the sex education watching porn, which isn't an education. That's basically lies about sex for entertainment. And, you know, these people are watching it at this very young age and don't realize that this is just a fantasy and is explicitly not what actually happens. And I think
I hope not. I mean, I hope it's not like that. I've seen my fair share, and there's some very bizarre things that go on in those movies.
I've taken yoga for years. There are some things that are not going to happen without being double jointed. And oh, by the way, you're supposed to ask before you do any of that. Always.
Absolutely.
So there's consent parameters for the youngins watching. Oh, and by the way, all that stuff that's making you feel inadequate is bullshit anyway, so you're fine. Everyone feels awkward and a little sticky. It's okay. See, this is why I cannot do the show solo.
And she's gone.
All right, so moving on. Yeah, moving on to the next thing.
Finance.
Yes. And we're kind of grouping this one together with basically money questions, legal questions, things that could stand to cost you a lot of money or that will affect your income and outflow.
And with that is also legal, things about legal matters,
Yes.
and corporate as well, working within the corporate group. So why don't you start with finance and investment?
And this one, I always feel a little nervous when people bring me finance and investment questions for the very simple reason that I really feel like before you go to a psychic reader about that, you should actually talk to a financial counselor. And I do life coaching, so I do some research for knowing options, like, you know, if you're going to retirement, if a reverse mortgage is a good idea for you, or if you'd end up losing your house faster, depending on who you work with. And, you know, I do try to keep up. I read Kiplinger's, I read Money, but I'm not an accountant. I don't have a background in finance. You know, I know enough to like have avoided bankruptcy my entire life, but really it is something that you should probably go to a second after you look at your options very thoroughly with someone whose entire career is looking at the ins and outs of this stuff. So one of the best questions that I've gotten is, you know, are the people I'm dealing with me honestly?
Oh, very good. Yeah.
So, and that's one, especially when someone has suspicions about someone they're working with, that's actually a good one to go to a reader for.
Mm-hmm. I think also the other one that comes to mind is which investments are in alignment with who I am and what my beliefs are. Because there may be some things that are doing really, really well, but I'm not there to promote gas and oil and all of that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So things that would be in alignment with who I am for a good investment as well.
Yeah. And again, that may be something, I know there are, I wouldn't say they're money market funds, but there are like investment companies that focus on like green energy and this kind of stuff. And again, talking to a financial counselor first would be your best way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know the other one, and I think you were mentioning before, was the people coming in with more than one choice and wanting to look at the possibilities there.
Yes. Yeah, I like to do like a mini layout, you know, 3-4 cards per, if I go in this direction, what does it look like? Just blanket statement. And if I go in that direction and I choose to go for that investment or whatever question we're going for, then what does that look like? And then you look over both of them. And a lot of times they're, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So then we ask more detailed questions. Would this be a good long-term investment, or is this a better short-term type thing going in that direction? And then asking more for more clarity never hurts. Sometimes I've gone through quite a few cards for clarity so I can get a deeper look at things than just a generic overview.
Yeah, and I think usually that's the first thing I expect to do when someone comes in asking about different business possibilities. The other one is, and I get this for legal question, I've gotten this for business question, is what's behind all the players in this conflict? So like if you're in a court case, it's a good idea to get a reading on the judge. You want to know which way that's likely to go. I know I had one a long time ago where it was looking like she was going to lose. Then I realized that the people that were suing her were going to do something to piss off the judge. And so I'm just like, okay, so we see this inclination with the judge. This is the area that this person is probably not going to respond well to you. Make sure you do the right thing there.
Yes.
But look at the judge. If you can, look at the jury. Obviously, don't harass the jury ever. But just make sure, you know, and the people that may be pressing charges, the lawyers involved, just look at them, look at what's behind them, look at what is motivating them to be there.
Yeah. The more you know about what I consider the lay of the land or all of the people that are involved, the better off you are. Then you walk in more prepared.
Yes. And, you know, and I know, again, and this doesn't really have much to do with psychic reading, but it's always a good idea to learn about as much as you can about the etiquette of a legal or business situation before you go in. Sometimes just taking an effort to know the unspoken social rules can actually become a business advantage for you.
That's good to know. It's good to know. I have had people that are in corporate business that have called me, you know, long distance from like New York and stuff. No names and no companies, but where I was like, oh, okay, I'm paying attention now, fully paying attention. And they were asking questions along the line of I'm being laterally transferred from this office to this office, no difference in money, but the reason I took it was because I wanted to get away from the people that I was working with. I had a very difficult time. What am I walking into? And how is this going to be? And as I'm leaving, is this going to be like a door that slams and hits me? Or is it going to be a good and congenial move to this other section? So then you're looking at all of the players that are involved in that, you know, immediately above, maybe 2 steps up, and below and laterally of people that are there.
Yeah, so I love it when I get the ones that have the good questions. But yeah, a lot of these questions are less around what's going to happen and more around who am I dealing with.
Yes.
And I think that, especially since often our personalities are our futures, that's really a good area to focus.
Yeah, I think another good question would be on top of that would be, let's just say that, you know, if the cards are not very favorable. So you're looking at it and you're going, oh, I'm walking into a kind of a hornet's nest of a problem, but the outcome is going to be good. So the question I like to ask is, so what can you do to make this journey through this from point A to point B easier on yourself? And then we draw cards on that. So I really like that. And that goes right across the board for whatever reading I'm doing. If we're getting those cards.
Yeah, that technique is a cornerstone in what I do with psychic life coaching is, okay, like people will come in, okay, here's my mess. And so the entire session is, okay, what do we do about it? And make a proactive plan to figure out what steps you can take and who you're dealing with and responding accordingly.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I think that people often feel that if they do a reading, or they may do readings for themselves, and all they know is, well, this is what's crossing me, or my outcome is terrible. You know, my outcome's a tower card. Everything's going to get ripped down. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted a happily ever after. Well, then let's see, what can you bring in so you can get to that goal line that you would like to have?
Well, there have been a few readings in the past year where the towers come up, and you know, it's usually some catastrophic circumstance that no one can control. But when I look at it, I'm like, but you're in a position to decide where the tower falls. So sometimes it's a good, where do you want to point it? What do you want it to fall on? You know, what needs to go? And it can be strangely empowering knowing you can at least help the way something you can't help turns out. But the people that looked at the world that way are fairly unique to begin with.
Yes. Well, if you have something that is going to be the tower card, if you have a situation that is headed for that, that means that your foundation isn't as strong as you would like it to be. So it is a mixed blessing. I think things are going to get chaotic, obviously. If you have bought a home and you got the tower card, that means that there's a hidden issue and you're going to get a lot of reconstruction going on. Good news, that when they're done, you're not going to have those problems going on, and you're going to get more customized home for yourself.
Yeah. Yes, which is always the better. Anything else that we want to cover on that one?
No, I don't think so. We did the legal and the corporate and the financial investment, so we're cooking.
Okay. Yay. Okay. And the next one is one that tends to fall more to me. And I think this is just because I do so much work around CPTSD and family trauma and generational trauma. But I will have people come to me and say, with their family and karma patterns, and say, what are the patterns I am likely to repeat? And, you know, depending on where they're at, there may be some patterns worth keeping, but also which ones do I want to break and what do I need to do to break it? Which most of these sessions do end with, here is a list of therapists that I recommend. But there is also some, okay, so let's figure out what trigger, you know, especially if you have trauma, what triggers do you recognize already? You know, what are you doing for your self-care? You know, what, you know, I will ask people to tell me about their grandparents and their parents. If they happen to remember their great-grandparents, even better, because this helps paint a constellation of where they're likely to land and, you know, what roles they're subconsciously acting out. And so I like to believe I've been helpful. The people that come to see me seem to be doing better. I've heard from all of them. No one's in jail as far as I know, so I'm doing pretty good. But
I would take that as a very, you know, like a gold star plus. There you go.
Yeah, especially with a couple of them.
Yeah, honestly, I have not had anyone come to me with that kind of, you know, I want to stop a karmic pattern or something like that. Yeah, I haven't had it. So, you know, maybe now I'm going to get a whole bunch of them so that, you know, it's coming into my awareness level. So.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's very much a truth that the things that the psychic deals with are the things that the psychic attracts. And so a lot of my life has been recognizing patterns down both my family lines. There's been a lot of war survivorship and trauma. And me, a lot of my spiritual work is just trying to change those patterns to something healthier. And I think that's one of the reasons that I attract other people that are at that point. And some people just never get there, or it's just not their lifetime to do it. They still have lessons to learn in it, and that's okay. But for the people that at least want to give it a shot, you know, I guess I'm kind of opening a road. Hopefully a couple other people are opening it with me.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. When you talk about that, we do attract who we are, or you know, in similar vibration in that sense. Yeah. I end up getting a lot of past life stuff, but then that's what I'm interested in, yeah. And not in a karmic sense, but just, well, why am I drawn over here when I know perfectly well that that's not something that I really want to do? Is that why? You know, why would I react to somebody that way? And I look deeper into it for myself, and I find out that it has to do with a past life interaction, and I'm still running on old juice, so to speak, you know, of what happened in the past life.
It's still pattern breaking. It's just much larger.
Yeah. Very large pattern.
Yeah, and you don't have a DNA chain to climb like I do, which makes it a little more complicated, I would think. So
no, this was just, you know, why would I make a decision like that? Anybody in their right mind wouldn't make a decision like this. And then it's like, oh, because I knew this person before, or that's why I'm drawn to interact with this person, is because I knew them before and we had a past life together and we have unfinished business. And then once I bless that situation, at least from my experience, bless the situation, bless them, and everything just kind of like naturally dissolves between us, and they go on their way and I go on my way, and I'm like, thank goodness. You know, now we can go experience other things. Isn't this nice? You know?
I've seen you before. I'm sick of your face. It's been 500 years.
These are not the droids that you are looking for.
Go chase the round ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this happens to us every time we get together. We start playing on things. So.
Yeah, well, which is part of the fun of watching, I would hope. So.
I hope so too. I hope so too. So, do we have any more on karmic patterns and relationships?
I think that's the big one. Sometimes it'll be phrased to me in other ways, like, am I at risk for addiction? Well, that may be a better question to ask your doctor or to get a genome test. You know, except for ones where there's always one that, like, you really should always get screened by a professional first, then come talk to me about spiritual care after, rather. But if the question of, am I likely to inherit my family's mental illness? And since mental illness is super complicated and can come from anything from a worm in your brain to generational trauma, and since one can lead to the other, it's far better to see a medical professional first, then talk to me about, okay, I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia. What can I do to take care of myself?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what can I do to distinguish between the things my brain is making me see and the actual psychic perceptions coming through? Because that's a super common problem for schizophrenics. Or, you know, when I'm having time distortion, what can I do to anchor? I will say, especially working with people with mental illness, it can tax a reader a little bit more because there's just so much more stuff going on.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's just the things that may be going on with the person that's mentally ill is not their fault. It would be no different than if they had a problem with the liver or kidney. But it is different in that when you come into the session with us, we're kind of sharing the problem with you. And so it does affect us more. So it is up to you. If you're coming in explicitly for a consultation about things to do with your illness, then of course tell us, and we do keep these things confidential. But if you think that something's going to come up that might affect the reading, or you skipped a medication cycle, it's a good idea to get to know the person first and find out their attitudes about mental illness first, because some people are just not educated, even among psychics. But for a lot of us, if we're okay with it, it's still a good idea to give us a heads up, just because we might want to bring in some tourmaline or do some extra shielding or something, just to make sure that both of us walk out healthy.
Yeah, I agree. There's been times where I knew something was a little off, and they're in the middle of a manic moment. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, and I try to get them to ground and, just come down a little bit, mm-hmm. so that I can work with them. But it is very draining. At the end of the day, you get home and you're like, wow, that was a wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is the reason that it's a good idea for psychics to take breaks between clients, like it is that therapists do. Like, I know therapists that always take 10 minutes on the top of every hour between clients, and it's just for a come down before the next one.
Yeah. I have to say I'm an abuser. I don't. I occasionally I do, but I've had days where I walk out, and the minute I walk out, there's somebody right behind, and then I walk out and there's somebody right behind, and I walk out and there's somebody right behind. And at the end of that day, I come home and lay on the sofa. I'm done. I'm toast.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've had those days. And working a psychic fair, it's back to back to back to back. So, which is why one of the reasons why, I have rent to pay, but taking at least a 20-minute break it helps me make sure that I've still got my best in, and that I'm not going to catch the nearest cold or trip over on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Being grounded is very important, but when you're doing readings, it's very difficult sometimes.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So, that brings me to my favorite question, which we decided to save for last, was when will it end? When will it stop?
I have that question.
When will this stop? And it can be anything. It can be their situation in an on-again, off-again relationship. It can be they have had one crisis after another crisis after another crisis, kind of thing. Usually that's where I come into astrology and work in the astrology of where they are and what seems to be happening and why is it happening to them at this time. But one of the favorite ways of going about it is, well, I can't pinpoint 6 days, 7 hours, and 3 minutes. I don't go down that road. What I will do is I will have them draw a card for each month, about up to 6 months to a year, depending on the severity of what they've been going through, so that we can overlook the generic energy of each month. And if they end up getting like the wish card, which I call, or the happily ever after type of card, or the sun card or something like that, then it's just like, well, that's looking pretty good. That looks like a darn good month. And if things are going that well for you, I would assume that things are going to be ending in that realm, So that's how we narrow it down of when will it end. And we can always draw clarity cards after that too. So find out what's ending. It may not all be ending.
Yeah, and I'm always hesitant to give a specific time frame, because I swear the universe looks and goes, oh, you think that, do you? And sometimes, like, what I do is I could use cards. Usually I do an intuitive feel, and like it's like sending an imaginary thread down my client's line. And so it's like, okay, if I'm feeling a shorter stop, it might be 2 or 3 months. If I'm feeling longer, if I can't find the thread, then I'm not even going to try to tell them, because it usually means there's other inner work they have to do to make something stop.
Yeah, and I will also draw cards on that. What can I do to make this happen for myself?
Yeah.
What am I not seeing? You might end up with the, if they're tied up in a legal case. I had a lady that was tied up in a legal case, and it was just on and on, this whole thing. And we ended up, if I remember correctly, getting the hangman card. And I said, you're not looking at the other side of the issue, you know? You need to see the other side of this. And I know you don't want to, but you need to see the other side of this so you can move through this.
Yeah. And again, the better you understand all the players, the more power you're going to have to resolve the issues.
Yeah, yeah. And then, a really good question after that is, if I do that, if I look at the other person or whatever the card is telling you to do, if I do this, when will it end? When will it end? And then it'll come back and tell, you can pull cards again on that. If I do that, if I do this, then I probably will get it within the first month. If I don't, then it looks like I'm 6 months more in litigation. Well, it doesn't take a genius to pick the first month.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And so with that, when will it end? I guess this is how this will end for the time being.
Yes.
Psychic Talk is going to go on a hiatus. And I mean, one of these days I'll do the chop up stuff. So you'll see little chunks in the future. But Christine is moving on to bigger projects, and I just need some damn sleep. So this will be it for now. So thank you for watching, whether you're watching right now or one of the people that catches their stuff later.
Absolutely. This has been one of the most entertaining and enlightening experiences. We've been doing this for 2 years.
Damn. Yeah. In internet time, that's like forever.
I know. So, I mean, but we've covered a lot of topics, and we've both learned from each other, seen each other's perspective in things. We're both quite different. But I celebrate the difference between us. I have found it absolutely delightful. And, if something comes up or we decide to pick up where we left off here, I would be considered blessed if we do. And if we don't, may we both prosper.
And hopefully we'll cross paths again soon.
I hope so too, honey. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for watching.